injury Cam? Was it from punching Stephen, or how does he actually injure that hand?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to dance around the bush here. He obviously injured it in the altercation with Stephen. And I don't think we ever misled you with that information. We just said it was an altercation. Stuff was done, and Melky's hurt his hand from it. He's gone in and got it cleaned out, and I don't think he's available for selection this week.
How disappointed were the defensive done that off?
Yeah, it was flattening. When I got the call from Melky, which is again another show of where we've come from. I was able to get well informed pretty early on what happened, and I mean it's just we're role models in society, and acting like that. Obviously, at a restaurant, a pretty popular restaurant in and around the Prahran South Yarra area, I think it's just a bad example, definitely. And those two boys are very remorseful in what they did and what they were able to do at Entrecôte, but in the end, violence is not the answer. Violence is never the answer. So that's why the punishment was brought down to both of them, and the reason why community services as well. We see that very fitting because it is a community act. These guys are role models in the community, and we feel like they need to give back. They need to give back to the community. We're not sure what that is and where that is yet, but we feel like that's a really suitable punishment.
When did the hand injury, when did that come to light? Because there was the testing to say that there were no injuries sustained, and what has something taken a turn?
He's in bed. I mean, injuries, you're never going to report an injury till you know all the facts. So we're not going to come out on yesterday and say, we think he's got a sore hand, we're not sure. Today we know he's got a sore hand. So that's why the injury gets reported as we do. It's the same with Tom McDonald. Tom McDonald, we had a rough idea of what was going on, but we didn't really know until yesterday. So Tom McDonald's injury gets reported yesterday. So that's when, I mean, we're not misleading, that's when the facts were dealt with.
So Matthew, you can't see up underneath this as a surgeon this morning. I mean, you must have had a fair hunch yesterday when you went to the market or meeting with this information that we had a pre-injured hand.
Well, you know, there's a lot more than just seeing an orthodontist or surgeon. There's an X-ray, there's an MRI, there's our own club doctors. There's a lot going on. Like, you're not going to have it's the same if you hurt my knee, mate. Like, if I hurt my knee, I'm going to see different specialists, different surgeries, different surgeons, different doctors to all get the right aspects. So we're not going to. I mean, we could say, oh, he maybe might have a sore hand, but I just think that's pointless. We're telling you now, he's got a sore hand.
So you knew what else didn't actually worry the sports to more problem when you lost a couple of games as well?
No, the wheels haven't fallen off. I'm completely comfortable with where we are from a performance point of view. Obviously, we've lost the last couple. The Fremantle game was a complete hiding. We didn't play our best footy at all, and that was a shock. And then the Sydney game, we actually felt like we got back to some of our better basics in football, and that was a ripping game for anyone that was there. I think both teams played some ripping footy, and Sydney were able to get some crucial goals late. So I don't think we're out of form at all. I'm really excited against one of the informed teams of the comp in Collingwood this week. But no, the wheels definitely haven't fallen off.
So the Stephen
Stephen May was suspended, obviously. Jake Melksham hasn't been. Can you give us more on
So Jake Melksham and Stephen May both got handed down the same punishment for the altercation, which we think was fair. They're role models in society, and what they did was unacceptable. So the community service, I think, is a really good aspect to that. And then Stephen May, who is one of the oldest statesmen and leaders of our football club, just made a poor decision to our values to go out and consume alcohol on when he's concussed. So they're completely dealt separately, and Stephen and Melky were both, and the wider playing group were all accepting of those results. That's certainly disappointing that there was a group of 6 or 7 there, and Stephen was drinking with them. And I've spoken to all parties involved, and especially the 5 guys outside of Steve and Jake, and I expressed my disappointment. Obviously, it's a difficult situation in any time. The guy's one of the older leaders of the football club, but we expect our young guys to be able to lead as well, and that really was disappointing. I mean, we expect Steve to be able to make the decisions himself at the age he's in and the experience that he's had. So it was disappointing.
Stephen talked about wanting to deal with it internally themselves. If it hadn't been sort of leaked to the paper and then put to the club, would it have been made public at all?
Yeah, I got told, obviously, pretty much straight away. And ideally, you want to, like, the Stephen issue of him drinking, we deal with stuff like that. I'm not going to say all the time, but there's stuff like that where you go against club values that don't reach the media and don't need to, unless there's obviously a one-match ban, then you obviously have to come out. So therefore, you would have found out because there was a one-match ban. But the altercation, I was pretty happy with dealing with that in-house, and we were right on top of it at the stage, and then obviously got out.
How do you go on with dealing with that? Because I know, like in Stephen's video yesterday, he said they're great mates and we were past and all the rest of it. But there's the, as you said, the addition of the assistant guys were there to manage that. It sort of doesn't just go away in a day. How do you go about, bringing the whole place back together and moving past this?
It's one of the great arts in leadership, and I'm really excited about the challenge. And I'm not going to lie, I've been embarrassed the last 2 days. I've come out quite frequently and very frequently in a podcast with the Imperfects, talking about this sort of stuff, how we speak to each other, and almost praising it on how we've been doing it as a group. And we've had a setback here, but I've had a setback with that almost every day in the last 2 years in the way I talk to teammates, the way I talk to my wife, my brothers, my mum and dad, the way I talk. I have setbacks with that all the time, but it's about how you act from that. So I'm really excited. And the early conversations, like Melky calling me pretty much straight away, just shows where this group's got to. Obviously, we would love for this not to happen, but it could be a real good stepping stone in trying to cement this, how we talk to each other and how we act around each other. And I've got no doubt that Melky and Maisie have worked it out and are working it out, but it's probably not an overnight thing. They had an altercation. Like, it probably will go on for a couple of weeks, making sure they mend that friendship.
What is the exception on not condoning violence? I spoke to someone in the restaurant yesterday who said it was inside and outside, and they think it was settled outside. Why was Jake's response justified in this instance? And why is a community action or order from the players, but like a court one, why is that sufficient as opposed to one sort of bring it?
That's what we felt like. The punishment, like, we don't condone violence, yes. And we're not, I think you're downplaying what community service is. Like, community service is something that can give back to the community. Like, a 1 week match penalty we didn't think was suitable for the act that happened. Yeah, it's a horrible act. Wrestling at a restaurant, in the public, both being well notable people in the community, it's a horrible act. But they can give back to community service. They can give back to the community and work their hours through there. And not to mention the public shame that they both have, and there's stories coming out left, right and centre. Like, they're both feeling a bit of shame. They both brought their families into it one way or another. So I think that's very appropriate. And then Stephen went against our club values as a leader, as an older statesman of our football club, and that's where the one match came from.
Did you ask him what he said to him?
Did I ask him what he said to him? To be fair, it was just a lot of banter. The one that has got out is completely false. Yeah, the grand final one's completely false, and I do want to get that out there because that looks bad on characters. That wasn't said, and I'm pretty comfortable and trust those two boys that wasn't said. But there was some other hurtful banter that was there. I'm not going to go into that, but as I said before, that is something that we've tried to stamp out. But it's like, when I say stamp out, we're 97% compliant, and I don't think we'll ever be 100% compliant in that space. It's such a hard, as a 30-year-old man in society, for some reason it's endearing for me to tell you and bring you down at the same time. So it's hard to stamp that out. But we're trying and we're working better at it.
You did say just before, though, that their families were brought into it.
Their families weren't brought into it per se, it was by being involved in media and whatnot. Great pick up. They're both for the next morning. Yeah, Melky was first. I don't think it's a race to be first, to be fair. But they're both for the next day, and obviously it happened pretty late at night, so I think it was appropriate timing.
Should they maybe have got to the restaurant? We don't think they were a bit upset last night that they had to
Restaurant
an apology or anything until I think this morning.
I mean, yes, they probably should have. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that they're thinking, and a lot of people you have to tick off of football clubs, and Not saying the restaurant should have been last. I mean, they obviously have, I'm not sure if they've damaged the restaurant or damaged their brand, or they probably have damaged the brand a tiny bit. So they should be apologetic for that, and I am as well. They're based under my leadership, so I'm obviously apologetic to that as well.
About the answer that kind of got out of hand, and then obviously someone was hit in the face. Is that a little bit dismissive? Is that kind of the boys will be boys kind of culture?
I don't like that word, yeah. I think if he had another chance, I reckon he wouldn't use that word as well. I think hiding behind the word banter is what men do when they're hurtful at times. And not saying that this comment was hurtful, but banter is a word that can hide behind, so I agree with that.
You've been using that word several times in this press conference, Max. You said banter on several occasions.
Yeah.
Are you hiding behind it as well?
I stand by it, and if I accidentally said it, banter is not the word I want to use. And it wasn't banter, it was hurtful comments about, who knows, football, personality traits. I'm not going to go into what it was about, but I think as a society we hide behind the word banter. And if I did, I apologise.
It's a suggestion that at the table, Stephen May, who I know is very well respected, but I guess gets with Libby, was giving crap to a whole bunch of players and Jake Pitt. Is that the idea?
I don't think so, no.
So why did Jake react?
Well, I'm not sure if that's necessarily what happened, if Jake bit. There was an altercation, there was a few things said. Was it Stephen talking, was it Jake talking? They were probably both talking, and they both weren't happy with what was said. I don't think Jake's necessarily bit. I don't think that's the way I want to say what happened.
No, I was just asking you.
Can I just ask a last question? Last one. Sorry, thanks. Just in a footy sense, obviously you mentioned Tom before, you've lost a key pillar now for another week at both ends of the ground. Queen's birthday, blockbuster game, a great opportunity. How do you sort of face this in a footy sense, covering those close to the contact?
Yeah, I mean, we've been like this for a long time, one man down, bring another one in. We are getting pretty thin, and with Tom usually being the one that does cover for Stephen, so it hurts. And I think when we talk about the punishments given, I think that hurts Stephen a lot as well, knowing that he's putting a lot of pressure on the likes of Harry Petty, Adam Tomlinson, Jake Lever, maybe Daniel Turner, Jaden Hunt, Michael Hibbert, these sort of guys are going to step up. So, and then the forward line, obviously, all us tools have been struggling to kick goals, so there's a bit of pressure on us tools to be able to kick them as well with Tom's news.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Max.